At the time, my dad was dating a woman who had 2 kids about my age. We were all in grade school together, and we got along pretty well. One weekend, we decided to have a sleepover at their house, choosing to stay in the spare room because it was the biggest and had enough space for all of us. My dad's girlfriend, however, didn't want me to sleep with her daughter Liz, and instead put me in their newly decorated guest room. While the room looked nice, something about it felt off. The walls were lined with old portraits, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the faces in the pictures were watching me. It was so unsettling that I turned the pictures around before settling in for the night. To distract myself, I pulled out my DS and began to relax. A little later, Liz came in to say goodnight and, as she was leaving, casually mentioned that the room I was in had belonged to her grandmother. It took me a second to process what she had said. Her grandmother had passed away only a week prior, and I suddenly felt a heavy sadness mixed with anxiety. I felt a little better after opening the bedroom door slightly to let some light from the hallway spill into the room so I didn't feel completely alone in the dark. Around 2 a.m., I was lying in bed when I noticed a shadow move across the floor from under the door as the hallway light flicked on. Assuming someone was going to the bathroom, I opened the door, hoping they might chat with me and help ease my anxiety. But when I looked out, the hallway was completely empty, and the light was off. Feeling increasingly uneasy, I quickly shut the door and went back to bed, trying to convince myself that I was just tired and imagining things. But as I lay there, staring into the darkness, I felt a heavy sense of dread. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a soft, muffled voice whispering right next to my ear. I couldn't make out the words, but it was definitely a woman's voice. I froze, too terrified to move, and started crying as quietly as I could. The voice stopped, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was in the room with me. In a panic, I bolted out of bed and ran down the hallway to my dad's room. I started banging on his door, yelling that I was scared and that someone was with me. When my dad finally opened the door, he looked more concerned than I'd ever seen him, as if he knew something was wrong. He pulled me into a hug as I sobbed, and he told me everything was going to be okay. He stayed with me in the room for the rest of the night, his presence making me feel a little safer, though I could tell he was still uneasy himself. The next morning, my dad allowed me to skip school, sensing that I was still shaken. As we ate breakfast, he apologized for not answering the door sooner when I was banging on it. Curious, I asked what he meant, and he hesitated before telling me that he, too, had felt something disturbing the night before. Apparently, he had been awake, unable to sleep, because he kept seeing a dark, looming shadow in the corner of the room. He was too frightened to get up, thinking the shadow might be something more than just a trick of the light. Hearing this, I felt an icy chill run down my spine. Both of us agreed that something ominous was in the house, something we couldn't explain or fully understand. Although I tried to forget about it over the years, that night remains deeply etched in my memory, a reminder of something inexplicable and frightening that I hope I never experience again. That was 2 years ago, when I was a junior in college. My name is Sarah, and I am now 22 years old. This was my first place, and I had been so excited to move in. In my first year of college, I lived in a dorm. Before that, I lived with my mom. In other words, I had never lived by myself before. The apartment unit was small, with only 1 bedroom and 2 bathrooms, but it was perfect for me. I remember telling my friend Josh, whom I'd known since we were 13, about my new place. I love him very much, and it was also his first year in college. I was excited to show him around campus, so I took him to all my favorite spots in the city. Around that time, we were looking forward to the homecoming football game. Football is a big deal at our school, and our team has a good record, so homecoming is important for everyone. Josh, too, was thrilled. It was his first homecoming game. During the game, he met a pretty girl and asked if I wanted to join them. For reasons I can't quite remember, I decided not to go, and Josh was mad about it. We argued, saying some thoughtless things to each other. After he left, I spent the night alone in the apartment. I used to have a little dog named Poppy. She was about a year old at the time, living with me in the apartment. The night started off uneventfully. It was peaceful. I took a relaxing shower, put on a face mask, and then Poppy and I settled in to watch TV in bed. There was a new song I'd found that day, and I kept playing it over and over, as I do when I really like a song. Now, every time I hear that song, I'm reminded of that day. Poppy and I went to bed around 10 o'clock, and I wasn't paying attention to the game or what was going on outside. Josh had made plans with the girl he'd met, so I knew he wouldn't be home early. At some point, I woke up to a lot of noise. I didn't know the exact time, but it was clear that something unusual was happening. I could hear cabinets slamming and loud banging sounds. The noise was so intense it pulled me from a deep sleep. Poppy, looking just as confused as I was, seemed alert, trying to figure out what was going on. My bedroom was very dark, with only a sliver of light coming from the kitchen, visible under the door. From what I could make out, someone seemed to be going through the kitchen cabinets one by one. Then Poppy suddenly jumped up and began barking non-stop at the edge of the bed. I'd never seen her behave like that before, which worried me even more. It didn't make sense, but I called out hello, although my voice was shaky and quiet. I wasn't even sure if whoever was there heard me. Just then, the bedroom door opened, and I jumped. The stranger stood there, causing Poppy to growl and try to attack. The light was so bright behind him that I could only make out a shadowy figure in a hoodie. He just stood there, staring at me for what felt like 15 long seconds, while Poppy went wild, barking furiously. In a moment that seemed like an eternity, he looked at me, then quickly shut the door. I don't know why, but I felt frozen, unable to move. The door flew open again, and we came face to face once more. Poppy continued barking fiercely, and my heart was racing. Although she was small, her angry barking made her seem much larger. The stranger slammed my door shut once more, but this time, he hit it so hard that it rattled. As soon as he closed it, I jolted out of bed and locked the door as quickly as I could. Moments later, I heard the distinct jingle of keys. My stomach dropped when I realized he might be going through my things. I was terrified he would find my car keys, which I had left near the entrance. My car was parked right outside, and I was scared that he would take it. Panicking, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking so much that it was hard to press the numbers. Tears were streaming down my face, and I could barely get the words out. I stammered that someone had broken into my apartment and had even entered my bedroom. It was the most scared I had ever been. Despite my apartment being just a 5-minute drive from the police station, it took the officers almost 30 minutes to arrive. I knew it was homecoming night, and they were likely overwhelmed, but it felt like an eternity. When they finally arrived and I was able to unlock my door, I saw the aftermath of the break-in. My roommate's bedroom and our living room were in complete disarray. The intruder had tried to take her TV, but it had been left on the floor as if he had abandoned it halfway through. My Xbox, along with all my games, was gone. Even my school bag containing my books and homework had been taken. When the officers entered, I explained what had happened as best as I could, but I was still shaken and probably wasn't making much sense. I asked if I could call my roommate Josh to let him know what had happened, and about 17 minutes later, he and his friend Evelyn arrived. While we waited, one of the officers asked if he could try to get fingerprints from the TV the intruder had left behind. I agreed, of course, but then, to my disbelief, he dropped his flashlight right on the screen, cracking it. He just looked at me and I thought, really? When Josh and Evelyn finally returned, the officers' attitude changed. They seemed suspicious, almost accusatory, as if they thought we were somehow involved in the break-in ourselves. They even suggested that Josh might have known the intruders, or, even worse, hired them to break in. I was shocked and hurt by this implication, especially since Josh and I had been friends since we were 13. We moved here together to make college life easier, and I couldn't believe they were doubting us. After the police left, Josh and I were left feeling confused and violated. We decided to change the locks right away, even though it was the middle of the night. I had to miss school the next day because I needed to drive to the nearest Nissan dealership, which was a 30-minute drive, to get a new car key fob programmed. It took 7 hours for them to finish it, and I felt so drained and on edge the entire time. Days turned into weeks, then months, and we never heard anything back from the police. They didn't follow up, and it seemed like our case had been forgotten. It's been 2 years now, and thankfully nothing strange or disturbing has happened since that night. But I'll never forget the fear I felt, the sense of helplessness as I waited for help to arrive, and the eerie silence in the aftermath of the break-in. We need to find a new place because I no longer feel safe in my last apartment. I'm a woman who is 25 years old, and I have 2 little kids. We moved in almost 3 years ago, and at that time, I added an extra lock to the front door to keep our 2-year-old daughter safely inside. Now, however, I believe that lock has also served another purpose, keeping someone else out. I didn't think much about it at first, but now the thought of it makes me feel scared, and this feeling of insecurity has only grown stronger. It feels dangerous. It all began with someone trying to open our door. The first time, my son was only a few months old, and my daughter wasn't in school yet. My partner works at different hours every day, but he always lets me know when he'll be home so that I can open the front door for him. Around this time, my daughter was 4 years old, and it was her habit to meet her dad at the door when he got home each evening. But on this particular night, it seems she didn't meet him. Someone else did. My son and I were sitting on the couch when I thought I heard someone trying to open the door. The noise was brief, stopping abruptly because the door was locked. My partner also has a habit of trying the lock before he enters, so I thought maybe it was him. However, my daughter, hearing the noise, ran to meet her dad at the door. She doesn't usually open the door on her own, but this time she decided to do it herself. I was about to tell her off for opening the door without permission when she turned to me and said, "It wasn't Daddy, Mommy. It was someone else." She said it in a clean, sweet voice as if it wasn't a big deal. Curious and slightly unsettled, I asked her if maybe it was just a sound from outside. By now, we knew our neighbors well, and sometimes they would accidentally make noise near our door. But she replied with a firm no, adding that it was a man. After this incident, my partner and I discussed the matter and agreed we needed to be more cautious. We also told our daughter that she should never open the door by herself again. From that day forward, I kept the top lock secured at all times. I tried to brush off the incident as a strange and rare accident, convincing myself that nothing was wrong. But then, a few weeks later, an event shook my sense of safety even more. It was around 1:30 a.m., and my partner and I were watching TV while the kids were in bed. Suddenly, we heard someone trying to open the door again, but this time, they rang the bell and knocked. Not hard, but enough to be noticeable. Through the peephole, my partner saw 3 men standing outside. I whispered to him not to answer the door. After a moment, I carefully looked out the window, making sure not to be seen. To my surprise, I couldn't see anyone leaving, which led me to believe they might still be waiting around, perhaps on the stairs, expecting us to answer. I thought about calling the police, but I felt uncertain if simply ringing the bell and trying the door handle was enough to report, so I didn't call. This situation only increased my anxiety, making me feel as if someone was watching or following us. Although it might seem silly, this behavior had only started recently, after living in this apartment for 3 years. The scariest incident, however, was yet to come. About 2 or 3 weeks after that night, my partner and I were in bed. It was nearly 3 in the morning when we heard an unexpected noise. Sometimes our 5-year-old daughter comes to our room if she has bad dreams, and we assumed it was her, getting up and running toward us. My partner got out of bed, opened the door, and peeked out to check on her. But when he looked back at me, he had a strange expression. At that very moment, we heard a loud thud against our door, followed by the sound of people running away. It turned out to be someone outside running quickly up the stairs. My partner peered through the window but saw no one. Feeling increasingly unsafe, I locked the bedroom door, placed something heavy in front of it, and gathered my children into the room with us. The next morning, we called the property owner to report the incidents. She promised to try to get someone to keep an eye on the area. Since then, I've only opened the door for people I know. Until recently, Nothing out of the ordinary had happened, but today, something disturbing took place once again. Just after I got out of the shower, I heard someone knocking on the door. My kid was already at school, my partner was at work, and my son was safely in his pack and play. I ignored the knock, assuming it was someone unimportant, but then I heard the unmistakable sound of someone trying to open the door. This repeated intrusion has left me considering moving. I can't stand the feeling of being here any longer. Knowing my children are here with me, the repeated attempts to open our door make me feel violated and incredibly unsafe. Around 5 to 6 months ago, my partner and I were desperately searching for a new place. We were running out of time since our baby girl was due soon, and no landlord seemed willing to rent to us. It felt like every door was closed, no matter how hard we tried. Just when we were about to lose hope, we found a small 2-bedroom apartment with an affordable rent. The owner was very kind and seemed genuinely happy to rent the apartment to us, which felt like a miracle. A week after signing the lease, we moved in and started settling down, arranging our belongings and setting up our home. The timing was perfect because our daughter was born only a week before the move, so we were able to bring her into a new, cozy space we could finally call home. Decorating the apartment, putting up pictures, and arranging little decorations on the shelves made me feel happy and at peace. However, about a month into living there, I began feeling uneasy at night. I thought it was probably just a side effect of having a newborn and the anxieties that come with it. Even so, I felt a strange nervousness after dark, as if something was slightly off. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just my imagination, and eventually, after 3.5 months, I felt okay again. But then, one night around 2 a.m., I was lying on the couch, which has a clear view down the hallway, leading to the kitchen, the bathroom, and the main bedroom doors. As I lay there, half awake, I saw a quick dark shadow dart from the direction of our bedroom door to the bathroom in the hallway. It was so sudden and so fast that I almost doubted I had seen it at all. But something about it felt undeniably real, sending a chill down my spine. I sat up, trying to shake off the eerie feeling and wondering if maybe I was just tired and imagining things. A week later, my partner and I were sitting on the couch together one afternoon. She was nursing our daughter, her attention mostly on the baby, while I was playing a video game on the TV. All of a sudden, she froze, her eyes widening. She looked over at me and said, "I just saw the tip of a white dress go into the bathroom." Her voice was barely a whisper, but her expression was filled with shock. Hearing this, a chill ran up my spine. I felt truly scared, but my partner tried to comfort me. She suggested we smudge the apartment with sage to cleanse any bad energy. As part of our First Nations culture, we believe in smudging to keep away bad energy or spirits. She has more experience with paranormal matters than I do, so I trusted her judgment. We performed the smudging ritual together, hoping it would bring us peace. 4 months passed, but instead of finding peace, we began experiencing strange occurrences almost daily. At night, we would often hear the sound of footsteps, sometimes loud and heavy, echoing through the apartment, and occasionally, we'd hear what sounded like someone dropping shoes by the front door. One night, I remember distinctly hearing a high heel clatter to the floor by the entrance. Alarmed, I grabbed a baseball bat, convinced someone had come in. But when I checked, everything was normal. Our shoes, including the high heel, were neatly lined up on the shoe rack. Feeling more anxious, we decided to consult our family members, who suggested having a feast for the spirit in our home. In our culture, we believe that spirits need to be fed, and they often let you know it's time by causing disruptions. So we prepared a small meal, said prayers, and left the dish out as an offering, hoping it would calm whatever was haunting our space. Despite our efforts, the strange happenings didn't stop. Those uneasy feelings I had at night grew into mild terror. Occasionally, our 4-month-old daughter would wake up screaming loudly, seemingly out of nowhere. We believe that babies, being new to this world, are still deeply connected to the spiritual realm. We started to wonder if she was seeing something we couldn't, a ghost or some kind of presence in the apartment. It was heartbreaking and scary, as we didn't know how to protect her or keep her safe. One night around 3 a.m., we were all asleep in the back room when we were jolted awake by a strange sound coming from the next room. It was the unmistakable noise of a video playing on my laptop. I remembered watching some videos before bed, but I had closed the laptop, so it shouldn't have been playing anything. I know for certain I didn't leave it on full volume either. But there it was, playing loudly, and we were both wide awake, feeling a mix of fear and confusion. I could tell that even my partner was unnerved. We haven't been able to explain any of these occurrences, and though we have many guesses, the true cause remains a mystery. All we know is that these events have left us feeling uneasy, and though we try to stay calm, each night brings a lingering sense of dread.